Welcome to Learn English by Reading. Today we will read one of the most famous and loved stories in the world, The Tortoise and the Hare. This story teaches us a simple but powerful lesson that can change how we think about life, effort, and success. Long ago, in a quiet green forest, there lived many animals: birds, rabbits, squirrels, deer, and even a slow little tortoise. All the animals were friends and liked to play together. But among them, one animal was very proud: the hare. He was fast, strong, and always ran faster than anyone else. He often laughed at the slow tortoise, who could only walk step by step. One sunny morning, something surprising happened. The slow tortoise decided to challenge the fast hare to a race. All the animals in the forest gathered around, shocked but excited. How could a slow tortoise ever beat a hare? This story is not only about a race, it is about patience, confidence, and never giving up, no matter how slow you are. As we go through the chapters, you will see how the tortoise's quiet strength becomes more powerful than the hare's pride. So, are you ready? Let's begin our journey into the world of the forest, where the fast and the slow meet in a race that no one will ever forget. Chapter 1: The Fast and the Slow. It was a bright and peaceful morning in the green forest. The golden sunlight shone through the tall trees, and the birds were singing happily. The air was fresh, and a gentle wind moved the leaves, making a soft rustling sound. It was a perfect day to play and enjoy nature. In that forest lived many animals: rabbits, squirrels, deer, foxes, monkeys, and even a small tortoise who liked to walk slowly near the river. Every morning, the animals gathered to talk and play together. But among all of them, one animal was always the center of attention: the hare. The hare was proud, strong, and very fast. He could run faster than any other animal in the forest. He loved to show off his speed. Sometimes he ran from one tree to another in just a few seconds. The birds cheered and the monkeys clapped. The hare smiled proudly and said, "No one can ever beat me. I am the fastest animal in this forest." One day, the animals gathered under a big banyan tree. The hare started talking loudly again. "Look at me," he said. "Yesterday I ran from the river to the hill in just a minute. Who else can do that? Not even the wind can catch me." All the animals laughed politely, but they were a little tired of his boasting. The squirrel whispered to the deer, "He talks about his speed every day." The deer nodded. Yes, he never stops bragging. Just then, the tortoise slowly walked toward the group. His shell was shiny in the sunlight, and his steps were steady and calm. He smiled at everyone and said in his quiet voice, "Good morning, my friends." The hare looked at him and laughed loudly. "Oh, look who's here! The slow walker. You take one whole day to cross the forest, don't you?" The animals giggled a little, but the tortoise didn't get angry. He simply said, "Yes, I am slow, but I always reach where I want to go." The hare laughed even harder. "Reach where you want to go? By the time you reach the river, the sun will already set." The tortoise kept his calm smile. "Maybe," he said gently, "but speed is not everything, my friend. Sometimes slow and steady steps can take you farther than you think." The hare rolled his eyes. "Slow and steady? That's just an excuse for being lazy." The tortoise looked up at him kindly. "We all have different strengths. You are fast, I am slow, but each of us has something special." The forest grew quiet. The animals were surprised by the tortoise's words. No one had ever spoken to the hare like that before. The hare crossed his arms and said proudly, "All right, slow one. If you think your steady steps are so good, how about we race? Let's see who reaches the hill first." The animals gasped. A race? Between the hare and the tortoise? The monkey laughed. "That's impossible. The hare will win in seconds." But the tortoise nodded calmly. "Very well," he said. "I will race with you." The hare blinked, surprised. He didn't expect the tortoise to accept. "You must be joking. You will lose badly." "Maybe," said the tortoise softly, "but I will try my best." The animals started whispering excitedly. Some thought it was a silly idea. Others were curious to see what would happen. The wise old owl who had been watching quietly said, "It doesn't matter who wins or loses. Every race teaches us something." The hare stretched his long legs and smiled proudly. "Tomorrow morning, then, we will race from the big banyan tree to the top of the green hill." The tortoise agreed. Yes, tomorrow morning. The forest became full of talk that evening. Everywhere the animals went, they spoke about the race. The birds sang about it, the monkeys chattered about it, and even the little ants whispered to each other, "Did you hear? The tortoise will race the hare." That night, the hare couldn't stop smiling. He thought to himself, "This is going to be easy. I'll run fast and win in no time. The tortoise will still be at the starting line when I finish." He laughed and went to sleep happily. Meanwhile, the tortoise sat quietly near the river. The moonlight touched his shell, and the water sparkled softly. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "I know I am slow, but I will not give up. I will try my best. Winning is not everything. Effort is." He felt calm inside. He didn't care what others said. He believed in himself. The next morning, the animals gathered early near the big banyan tree. The squirrel was jumping up and down with excitement. The monkey brought some fruits to eat while watching the race. The deer stood near the river, and the owl sat high on a branch to see everything clearly. The hare came first, stretching and smiling proudly. "I hope the old tortoise hasn't fallen asleep," he said, laughing. A few minutes later, the tortoise arrived slowly but steadily. He greeted everyone with his calm smile. "Good morning, friends." The owl raised his wings. "Are both of you ready?" he asked. "Yes," shouted the hare. "Yes," said the tortoise quietly. The owl flapped his wings and said, "On your marks, get set, go." The race began. The hare jumped forward like the wind, running so fast that the dust rose behind him. The animals cheered loudly. The tortoise started to move slowly, one step after another, not looking left or right, just forward. The hare looked back after a few seconds and saw that the tortoise was far, far behind. He laughed. "This race will be over soon," he said to himself. But as the tortoise moved slowly under the sun, something special began to shine. Not his speed, but his quiet strength and determination. Each step he took showed courage, patience, and belief. And so, the race between the fast and the slow had truly begun. Chapter 2. The Boastful Hare. The sun rose gently over the forest, painting the sky with soft orange and pink colors. The air was fresh, and drops of morning dew shone like tiny diamonds on the grass. Birds sang cheerfully, calling out to one another as the animals woke up. It was the morning of the big race, the race between the tortoise and the hare. The forest was full of excitement. Every animal wanted to see what would happen. Some believed it was just a joke. Others hoped to learn something new. The monkey jumped from tree to tree, shouting, "Come quickly! The race is about to start." The deer smiled and said, "This will be fun to watch." Even the small ants came out of their holes to see. The hare stood near the starting line, stretching his legs proudly. His white fur shone in the sunlight, and his long ears stood tall. He looked confident and full of energy. He said loudly, "Ah, this will be easy. I'll finish the race before the tortoise even reaches the first tree." The animals laughed, and the hare enjoyed the attention. He loved when everyone looked at him. He started hopping quickly in circles, showing his strong legs. "See how fast I am," he said. "No one can ever run like me. I was born to win." Then he looked at the tortoise, who was slowly walking toward the starting line. The tortoise's shell glowed softly under the morning sun. He moved carefully, step by step, never hurrying. The hare laughed loudly. "Oh, here he comes. Be careful, slow one, don't get tired before we start." The tortoise smiled kindly. "Good morning, my friend. I am ready." "Ready?" the hare said with a laugh. "Ready to lose, you mean?" But the tortoise did not answer. He simply looked ahead at the path, a long dirt road that went past trees, over a small hill, and ended near a tall green bush. It was not an easy path, but he knew one thing: he would not stop. The owl, the wise old judge of the forest, flew down to a low branch. "Animals of the forest," he said in a calm voice, "we are here to witness this race. It is not about who is faster, but who has courage and determination. Let us begin." The fox raised his tail and shouted, "Ready, set, go!" The hare shot forward like an arrow. Dust flew everywhere. The animals gasped. He was so fast that in just a few seconds he disappeared behind the trees. The tortoise began his slow walk. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. His legs moved steadily. His eyes stayed on the road ahead. The hare ran and laughed. "This is too easy," he said to himself. "That slow creature is probably still at the start." He looked back, but the tortoise was so far behind that he couldn't even see him. He kept running until he reached a tall tree. The wind blew softly, and the shade looked comfortable. The hare stopped and said, "Why should I hurry? The tortoise will take all day to reach here. Maybe I should rest a little." He sat under the tree and stretched his legs. "Poor tortoise," he said, smiling proudly. "He must be so tired already. I can win any time I want." He plucked a piece of grass and chewed it slowly. After a while, some birds flew by and said, "Hare, aren't you running?" "The tortoise is still moving." The hare laughed. "Let him move. He will never catch me." He leaned back against the tree and said, "Let me show everyone how fast I am later. I'll wait a bit, then run and finish easily." As he rested, he remembered how everyone admired his speed. He thought about the day he raced the deer and won easily. He remembered how he beat the fox and the monkey in running games. Every time the animals cheered for him. "I am the champion," he said softly, smiling. "No one can defeat me." His pride made him feel like a king of the forest. But while he was busy thinking about himself, the gentle wind blew softly through the trees, and the sounds of the forest grew quiet. The warm sunlight made him sleepy. His eyes began to close slowly. "Maybe just a short nap," he murmured. "I'll wake up before he gets anywhere close." The hare curled up under the tree and soon fell into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, far behind, the tortoise continued his slow walk. The sun was getting higher, and the road was long, but he didn't stop. His steps were small, but each one took him forward. Slow and steady, he whispered to himself. One step at a time. He passed the first tree, then the second. His shell was warm under the sunlight, but he didn't mind. He looked up and saw a butterfly flying beside him. "Good luck, Tortoise," the butterfly said. "Thank you," replied the tortoise kindly. "I just have to keep moving." Back at the starting place, the animals were still watching. Some of them said, "The hare will win soon," but others noticed something special. "Look at the tortoise," said the owl. "He never stops. He may be slow, but he is steady. That is true strength." The monkey scratched his head. "Do you think he can really win?" The owl smiled. "Sometimes those who move slowly see farther than those who rush ahead." The forest grew quiet again. The tortoise moved step by step, never looking back. He didn't know that the hare was sleeping ahead of him. He didn't know that everyone was watching. He just focused on his goal. As the day went on, the sunlight became softer. The tortoise's feet hurt a little, but he kept going. His heart was calm. His thoughts were clear. "I may not be fast," he said softly, "but I can be patient. Patience is also power." Up ahead, the hare snored under the tree. A small ant crawled near his nose and said, "Wake up, hare! The tortoise is coming," but the hare only turned over and mumbled, "Let him come. I'll still win," and fell asleep again. The wind blew gently through the forest. The leaves whispered secrets of wisdom. Somewhere between pride and patience, two very different hearts were racing, one fast and one slow. And while the hare slept, the tortoise's steady footsteps moved closer and closer to the finish line. The story of the boastful hare had just begun to change. Chapter 3. The Tortoise's Challenge. The sun was already shining brightly in the sky when the tortoise slowly reached the middle of the race path. The air was warm and the forest was calm. He looked around, breathing deeply. His legs were tired, but his heart was strong. Step by step, he moved forward through the dirt path, smiling gently to himself. "Just keep going," he whispered, "one step at a time. That is enough." Meanwhile, under a tall tree nearby, the hare was still sleeping soundly. The cool shade made him comfortable, and the soft wind blew across his fur. He dreamed of animals cheering for him, calling his name, "Hare! Hare, the fastest in the forest." He smiled in his sleep and mumbled, "Yes, I'm the winner." But the truth was different. While the hare slept, the tortoise continued to move. His steady footsteps made a quiet rhythm on the ground. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was small, but it was full of determination. As he walked, he passed a small bush where some squirrels were eating nuts. The squirrels stopped and watched him. "Hey, Tortoise," one of them said, "why don't you rest?" "The hare is already far ahead. You can't win." The tortoise looked up and smiled. "Maybe I can't win," he said softly, "but I will not stop. I want to finish what I started." The squirrels looked at each other, surprised. "He is not fast," one whispered, "but he is brave." The tortoise thanked them and kept moving. Every few minutes, he looked at the long road ahead, but he never lost hope. He remembered his challenge to the hare, the promise he made to himself to try his best. "Everyone laughed when I said I would race," he thought. "But that doesn't matter. What matters is that I believe in myself." The forest around him was full of life. Birds flew from tree to tree, singing cheerful songs. Butterflies danced in the air. The sound of the river flowed softly nearby. The tortoise felt peaceful inside. Then, as he walked past a group of flowers, he heard a familiar voice. The monkey was sitting on a branch, watching him. "Hey, Tortoise!" shouted the monkey. "You're still moving?" "The hare must be waiting for you at the finish line." The tortoise laughed a little. "Maybe he is," he said calmly. "But I'll still walk. A race is not over until it ends." The monkey scratched his head. "You really think you can beat him?" The tortoise smiled again. "I don't race to beat him. I race to prove that even slow steps can reach the goal." The monkey was silent for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "You're strange, Tortoise, but I think you're special too." And with that, the tortoise continued on his journey. Back under the shady tree, the hare began to wake up. He yawned loudly and stretched his legs. "Ah, what a nice nap," he said. The tortoise must still be far behind. He looked around but didn't see the tortoise anywhere. Maybe I should check," he said lazily. So he hopped a few steps ahead and looked down the path. To his surprise, he saw a small shape far, far away. It was the tortoise. The hare blinked. "What? How is that possible? He's already halfway there?" He laughed. "Well, no problem. I can still beat him easily." He started running again, fast as lightning, but after a few minutes, he stopped once more. "Why hurry?" he said proudly. "I'll rest again near the big rock. I still have plenty of time." So he stopped again and looked at himself in the reflection of a small pond. "I am strong, fast, and handsome," he said, smiling proudly. "Everyone admires me. That slow tortoise will never win." He didn't realize that pride was slowly blinding him, making him lazy, careless, and overconfident. The tortoise kept walking. His body felt heavy, but his spirit felt light. "Never give up," he repeated quietly. "Slow and steady wins the race." He remembered the morning when the hare laughed at him in front of everyone. He remembered the animals' surprised faces when he accepted the challenge. That memory gave him strength. He said to himself, "I will not stop because of fear or laughter. I started this challenge to prove that even the smallest effort can bring big results." As he walked, the wise owl flew down from a tree and landed beside him. "Good afternoon, Tortoise," said the owl kindly. "You have come a long way. Many did not believe in you, but you are proving them wrong." The tortoise looked up with a smile. "Thank you, owl. I just do my best." The owl nodded. "Remember, the one who moves with patience and heart always reaches the goal, even if it takes time." "I will remember," said the tortoise. The owl flew away, and the tortoise continued. The sun began to move toward the west, and the air became cooler. His feet hurt more now, but he kept going. Each step was slower than before, but he never stopped. He could see the green hill far in the distance, the finish line. It looked far, but it was not impossible. "I can do this," he whispered. Meanwhile, the hare finally decided to run again. He ran fast and soon passed the tortoise easily. As he passed, he laughed loudly. "Good luck, slow one. I'll be waiting for you at the top of the hill." The tortoise smiled and replied softly, "See you there." The hare ran until he saw the hill. "Almost there," he shouted. "I'll win again, as always." But as he reached the bottom of the hill, he stopped once more. "I'm tired," he said. "The tortoise is far behind anyway. I'll rest for just a few minutes before finishing." He lay down in the grass, listening to the birds. The soft wind made him sleepy again. Soon, his eyes closed, and he fell asleep once more. Back on the path, the tortoise kept walking. His shell was dusty, and his legs were sore, but his eyes were full of hope. Step by step, he whispered, slow and steady. The animals who were watching began to cheer softly for him. "Go, Tortoise!" "Go!" said the squirrel. "You can do it!" shouted the monkey. The owl watched proudly from above. The tortoise heard their voices and smiled. "Thank you, my friends. I will finish this race." And so, the slow, steady tortoise continued his challenge, not with speed, but with heart. Every step he took was a small victory, and with each one, he came closer to showing the world that true strength lives in patience, not pride. Chapter 4. The Race Begins. The next morning, the forest woke up early. The air was cool, and the golden sunlight slowly touched the green leaves. Birds sang softly, as if they were calling everyone to gather. Today was the day that everyone had been waiting for, the day when the hare and the tortoise would finally race. All the animals were excited. The monkey climbed to the top of a tall tree to get a better view. The fox brought some fruits for everyone to share. The deer, the squirrel, and the owl all came to watch. Even the smallest creatures, the ants and butterflies, gathered along the path. The hare arrived first, hopping proudly. He looked full of energy and confidence. His white fur shone in the morning sun, and his long ears stood straight. He smiled proudly and said, "Good morning, everyone. I hope you're ready to see how fast I can run today." The animals clapped politely, but some rolled their eyes. The owl said wisely, "Remember, Hare, a race is not only about speed, it's also about patience and spirit." The hare laughed. "Oh, don't worry about that. I'll show you real speed. No one in this forest can catch me." A few minutes later, the tortoise came slowly toward the starting line. His shell was shiny and strong, and his face was calm. He smiled gently at everyone and said, "Good morning, friends. I am ready." The hare laughed loudly. "Ready? For what? To lose?" The tortoise looked at him kindly. "Maybe I will lose, maybe not. But I am ready to try my best." The forest grew quiet for a moment. The animals could feel something special, not just a race, but a lesson waiting to happen. The wise owl spread his wings and said, "Animals of the forest, let the race begin." From this big banyan tree to the top of the green hill, that is the finish line. May both of you do your best. The fox raised his tail and shouted, "On your marks! Get set! Go!" The race began. The hare jumped forward like lightning. His feet hit the ground so fast that dust rose behind him. The animals cheered loudly. "Go, hare! Go!" Within seconds, the hare disappeared behind the trees. The tortoise started to move slowly, one step after another. His short legs carried him forward, carefully but steadily. "Slow and steady," he whispered to himself. "Don't stop. Just move." At first, everyone watched the hare. He ran so fast that even the wind could not catch him. The monkey shouted, "Look at him! He's already so far ahead." But then the owl looked down at the tortoise and said softly, "Do not forget him. He moves slowly, but he does not stop. That is also a kind of strength." The tortoise kept going. The road was long and uneven, full of small stones and fallen leaves. He walked around them carefully, never rushing, never resting. His shell glistened in the sunlight, and his eyes stayed on the road ahead. Meanwhile, far ahead, the hare stopped for a moment. He turned around and laughed. Where is that slow creature? I can't even see him. He looked at the finish line far away on the hill. This race is too easy, he said proudly. Maybe I should rest for a while. The tortoise will take all day to get here. He found a big tree with a soft patch of grass beneath it. The shade was cool and comfortable. Just a short rest, he said. Then I'll finish the race in a flash. He lay down, closed his eyes, and listened to the birds singing. The wind blew softly through the trees, and the hare began to feel sleepy. Just a few minutes, he whispered, yawning, and soon he fell asleep. Back on the path, the tortoise continued his steady walk. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and the road became hot. His legs hurt, but his heart was strong. Don't stop now, he said quietly. Just keep going. He passed the place where the hare had been running earlier. He saw the footprints on the ground, but didn't see the hare himself. He must be far ahead, the tortoise thought. But he didn't worry. He just kept walking. Along the way, he met the squirrel, who was eating nuts on a branch. Tortoise, said the squirrel kindly, the hare is much faster than you. Why do you keep walking? Don't you feel tired? The tortoise smiled and replied, Yes, I am tired. But I promised myself that I would finish the race. If I stop now, I'll never know what could happen. The squirrel nodded slowly. You are very brave, Tortoise. I'll cheer for you. Thank you, said the tortoise, and he continued his slow journey. After a while, the monkey swung down from a tree and said, You are still walking? The hare must be at the finish line already. The tortoise laughed softly. Maybe he is, but I will still finish the race. The monkey scratched his head and said, You're strange, but I like your spirit. The tortoise smiled and kept moving. Each step was small, but each step brought him closer to the end. Under the big tree, the hare was still fast asleep. The cool wind made him comfortable, and the sound of birds lulled him deeper into his dreams. He dreamed of standing on the hilltop, surrounded by cheering animals. He dreamed of holding a golden crown made of leaves, the owl placing it on his head. He smiled in his sleep and whispered, I am the winner. I am the fastest. The hours passed quietly. The forest changed as the sun moved across the sky. Shadows grew longer, and the air became softer. The tortoise was still walking, step by step, breath by breath. When he finally reached the big tree, he saw the hare sleeping under it. The tortoise smiled kindly. Rest well, my friend, he whispered. I will keep going. He moved past the tree slowly, quietly, carefully. His legs were heavy, but his heart was light. He knew he was doing something important, something that would be remembered. Far away near the hill, the animals were waiting at the finish line. The owl looked at the sun and said, It's getting late. Where are they? The deer said, I think the hare will appear any minute. He must be very close. But the monkey shouted from the tree, Wait! Look! I see someone. It's the tortoise. Everyone turned to look. There he was, the slow, steady tortoise walking toward the hill. His shell was dusty, his legs were tired, but he kept moving. The animals gasped. Where is the hare? No one knew. The tortoise reached the bottom of the hill. He looked up. It was steep, but he didn't stop. Step by step he climbed upward, breathing deeply, never looking back. As he climbed, The animals began to cheer louder and louder. "Go, Tortoise! Go! You can do it!" And high up on the hill, the finish line waited, shining in the golden light of the setting sun. The race between the fast and the slow was no longer about speed. It was about heart, courage, and never giving up. The tortoise took one last deep breath and said to himself, "Slow and steady always wins the race." And with that, he kept climbing, one step at a time, while the hare still slept peacefully under the tree. Chapter 5. The Hare's Big Mistake. The sun was high in the sky, and the warm light covered the forest. The birds had stopped singing, and the air was quiet. The hare was still sleeping under the big tree, dreaming proudly about winning the race. He smiled in his sleep and whispered, "I am the fastest. No one can beat me." But while he slept, the tortoise kept moving slowly and steadily. Step by step, he crossed the small hill, passed the riverbank, and continued along the dusty road. His legs felt heavy, and his shell was warm under the sun. But he didn't stop. He kept repeating softly, "Slow and steady wins the race." Far away, the animals were still waiting near the finish line. The monkey, fox, deer, and owl all looked at the path. "Why is the hare taking so long?" the monkey asked. "He should have finished already." The owl blinked his wise eyes and said, "Sometimes speed is not everything. Let us wait and see." Meanwhile, the tortoise was moving closer and closer. Sweat rolled down his head, and his legs ached, but his heart was full of determination. He looked up at the sky and said quietly, "The road is long, but I will finish it. I promised myself not to give up." Then a soft breeze passed by. The tortoise smiled because he saw something familiar ahead, the big tree where the hare was sleeping. The hare's long ears were easy to spot. The tortoise's eyes widened. "There he is," he whispered. "Still sleeping." He moved quietly, careful not to wake the hare. His steps were slow but steady. He passed the tree, inch by inch, until he was ahead of the hare. The hare moved a little in his sleep and mumbled, "Almost there, I win." But he didn't wake up. The tortoise looked back once, smiled gently, and said, "Rest well, my friend. I must keep going." Then he continued on his way toward the finish line. Time passed. The sun began to move down the sky, turning golden and soft. The wind carried the sounds of the forest, rustling leaves, chirping crickets, and the quiet footsteps of the tortoise. Suddenly, a drop of rain fell on the hare's nose. "Achoo!" He sneezed and woke up. He looked around, stretching his legs. "What a nice nap," he said proudly. "The tortoise must still be far behind. I'll finish the race now and show everyone my speed." He jumped up and looked down the path, but something was wrong. There was no tortoise in sight. "Where is he?" he said, confused. Did he stop? Or maybe he went back. He laughed a little, though he felt unsure. "He's too slow anyway. I'll reach the end quickly." The hare began to run fast, his long legs flying over the path. Dust rose behind him as he sped through the forest. But as he ran, he noticed something surprising, little footprints on the ground. They were not his own. "These looked like the tortoise's marks," he said, frowning. "Could it be—" He ran faster, his heart starting to beat quickly. "No!" He couldn't have passed me. He jumped over rocks and dashed around trees. His ears flapped in the wind, and his breathing grew heavy. Then, as he came over a small hill, he saw something that made him stop suddenly. There, in the distance, was the tortoise, walking calmly toward the finish line. The hare's eyes went wide. "No, no, no, this can't be true," he shouted. "I was ahead. I'm supposed to win." He started running even faster now. The ground shook under his quick steps. Birds flew away from the noise. The hare's heart raced as he shouted, "Wait! I'm coming!" But the tortoise didn't look back. He just kept moving, slow, steady, strong. His shell glowed in the afternoon light. The finish line was not far now. The animals were cheering loudly, and the noise reached the hare's ears. "The tortoise is coming! The tortoise is coming!" cried the monkey, jumping with excitement. The fox waved his tail and said, "Look! He's almost there!" The owl smiled proudly and whispered, "Wisdom and patience. That is true strength." The hare pushed himself harder. His feet hit the ground like thunder. "I can still make it," he cried, but his body was tired from the long run and his deep sleep. His breaths came fast, and his legs began to feel weak. "No, I can't lose. Not to him." The tortoise's steps were small, but his goal was close. He could see the animals waiting. He could hear their cheers. "Almost there," he whispered. "Just a few more steps." The hare ran as fast as he could, his heart burning with pride and fear. The finish line was only a few meters away. The tortoise was almost touching it. The animals shouted together, "Go, tortoise, go!" And then it happened. The tortoise crossed the finish line. The forest exploded with cheers. "The tortoise wins! The tortoise wins!" cried the monkey, clapping his hands. The fox jumped happily. The owl nodded wisely. The deer smiled kindly. The hare arrived just one moment later, his chest heaving, his eyes wide in shock. "No, this can't be real," he said softly. "I lost to the tortoise?" The tortoise turned around and smiled kindly at him. "You see, my friend," he said, "slow and steady wins the race." The hare dropped his head. His ears fell flat. His heart was heavy with shame. "I was foolish," he whispered. "I was too proud. I should never have slept." The animals surrounded the tortoise and cheered. "Well done. You showed us the power of patience," said the owl. The tortoise smiled humbly. "It was not about being better," he said. "It was about never giving up." The hare stood quietly, listening to the cheers. He felt small and embarrassed, but deep inside, he knew something important had changed. The race had taught him a lesson he would never forget. That day, in the heart of the forest, every creature learned that pride makes us weak, but patience makes us strong. The hare's big mistake had become the tortoise's great victory, and a timeless lesson for all. Chapter 6. The Surprise Victory. The forest was full of sound and color. Birds sang loudly from the trees, the wind danced through the leaves, and all the animals cheered for the winner. The tortoise had crossed the finish line first, something no one believed could ever happen. The hare, who had always been the fastest, had lost the race. For a long moment, no one spoke. Everyone looked at the tortoise standing quietly near the finish line. His shell was dusty and his legs trembled with tiredness, but his eyes shone with calm happiness. Then the monkey shouted, "The tortoise won!" The tortoise won, and the forest exploded with cheers again. The fox wagged his tail and said, "I can't believe it." "How did you do it?" The deer smiled warmly. "You didn't run fast, but you never stopped." The owl, who had been watching carefully from his branch, nodded wisely. "Indeed," he said in a deep voice. Today we have all learned something very important. The tortoise took a deep breath and smiled. Thank you, my friends. I just did what I could. I didn't rush, and I didn't rest. I just kept moving forward. The hare stood a few steps away, breathing heavily. His heart pounded, and his ears drooped. His pride, which was once so big, now felt small and heavy. I can't believe this, he whispered. I was so sure I'd win. I even laughed at him. The owl flew down and landed beside the hare. Pride, my young friend, said the owl kindly, is like a shadow. It follows us everywhere, but if we chase it, we lose sight of the real path. The hare looked at the ground. His face turned red with shame. I thought I was the best. I didn't respect the tortoise. I thought he was too slow to matter. The tortoise slowly walked up to the hare. His legs hurt, but his heart was full of kindness. You are very fast, Hare, he said gently, but speed alone doesn't make someone a winner. What matters most is patience, focus, and never giving up. The hare looked at him with wide eyes. You're right, he said quietly. I laughed at you, but you showed me what real strength looks like. I'm sorry, Tortoise. The tortoise smiled. I forgive you, my friend. We all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them. The animals surrounded the two racers. The monkey clapped and said, That was the most exciting race ever. The fox added, And the most surprising. The owl nodded. Let us not forget the lesson of this race. Pride and overconfidence lead to failure, but hard work, patience, and steady effort lead to success. The deer turned to the tortoise. You are a true winner, she said, not because you were faster, but because you never stopped believing in yourself. The tortoise lowered his head humbly. Thank you, my friends. I only wanted to finish. I didn't think about winning or losing. The hare looked up. His eyes were soft now, not proud or angry. I learned something today, he said. I will never underestimate anyone again, and I will never let pride guide me. The owl smiled. That is the true victory, Hare. You lost the race, but you won wisdom. The sun began to set, and the forest turned golden. The light covered the trees in soft orange colors. The animals gathered around the tortoise to celebrate. The monkey brought fresh fruit. The birds sang happy songs. Even the squirrel danced around the tree. The hare stood beside the tortoise, watching everyone. He felt a little sad, but also peaceful. He knew this day would change him forever. As the celebration continued, the tortoise said quietly, This race was not about speed. It was about believing in yourself and never stopping, no matter how slow you are. The owl raised his wings and said loudly, Let this day be remembered. From now on, the forest will tell the story of the tortoise and the hare, the race that taught us all a lesson. The animals cheered again. Yes, the tortoise and the hare. The monkey laughed. We'll tell this story to our children. The deer smiled, and they'll learn to be patient, just like the tortoise. The fox added with a grin, and they'll learn not to take naps in the middle of a race. Everyone laughed, even the hare. His laughter was softer now, humble and true. He looked at the tortoise and said, You deserve this victory, my friend. The tortoise nodded. Thank you. But I think we both won something today. You learned to be humble, and I learned that patience can move mountains. The two shook hands, or rather, the hare shook the tortoise's small leg, and the forest filled with joy again. As night slowly arrived, the stars began to shine. The moon rose above the trees, silver and calm. The tortoise looked up at the sky and whispered, "It was a long day, but a good one." The hare lay on the grass beside him. "I'll never forget this race," he said softly. "Next time, I'll do better, not to win, but to try my best." The tortoise smiled kindly. "That's all anyone can do." The wind blew gently through the trees, carrying their words like a song across the forest. The owl closed his eyes and said, "The race is over, but the lesson will live forever." As the animals slowly returned to their homes, the forest became quiet again. The stars sparkled like tiny lights above. The tortoise rested under a tree, feeling proud, not of beating the hare, but of finishing what he started. And the hare lay nearby, thinking deeply. His pride was gone, but something new had grown in his heart: respect, humility, and a desire to change. That night, both the tortoise and the hare slept peacefully, side by side, under the moonlight. The forest whispered softly, telling their story to the wind, the story of patience, pride, and a surprising victory. Chapter 7. The Moral Lesson. The sun had set, and the forest was quiet. The golden light of evening painted the leaves in soft orange and red colors. Birds had returned to their nests, and the wind whispered gently through the trees. The long day of the great race between the tortoise and the hare had ended, but its story was far from over. All the animals gathered near the big banyan tree one last time. They wanted to reflect on what had happened and learn from it. The tortoise, still a little tired from the long walk, stood calmly in the center. His shell was dusty, his legs a little sore, but his heart was light and full of pride. He had done something no one expected. The hare stood nearby, his ears drooping slightly. He had learned a lesson that he would never forget. No longer full of pride and boasting, he looked at the tortoise with respect. "You have taught me something important today," he said softly. "Being fast is good, but it is not everything. Patience, focus, and steady effort are just as powerful." The tortoise smiled kindly. "We all have different strengths," he said. "You are fast and I am slow. But every one of us can reach our goals if we keep trying and never give up." The owl flew down from his branch and looked at all the animals. "Today, we witnessed a race between speed and patience, pride and effort," he said. "The hare learned that pride and overconfidence can lead to failure. The tortoise showed that patience, determination, and hard work lead to success, even if you move slowly." The monkey clapped his hands. "I never thought the tortoise could win. But now I understand that slow and steady can be stronger than fast and careless." The fox wagged his tail. "It's true. We all need to remember this lesson. Life is not always about winning quickly. Sometimes it is about finishing what you start, step by step." The deer smiled gently. "This story will stay in our hearts forever. Every time we feel proud or lazy, we will remember the tortoise and the hare." The tortoise nodded. "Yes, it is not just about races," he said. "Life is full of challenges. Sometimes we feel slow or weak compared to others, but if we keep trying, we will reach our goals. Never give up, even if it seems impossible." The hare lowered his head. "I understand now," he said. "I rushed, I laughed at others, and I let my pride control me. But today, I have learned to be patient, humble, and careful. These are true strengths." The animals all looked at him and smiled. "It's a good lesson for all of us," said the owl. The forest became peaceful again as night fell. The stars sparkled above, and the moon shone gently over the trees. The tortoise walked slowly back to his home, feeling proud but humble. He had proven something very important, that effort and patience are more powerful than pride and speed. The hare followed behind him, thoughtful and quiet. He had lost the race, but he had gained something even more valuable: wisdom and understanding. He knew he would never forget this day. From that day on, the story of the tortoise and the hare was told and retold by all the animals in the forest. Parents told it to their children, teachers shared it with students, and friends reminded each other of its lesson. Everyone learned that rushing too quickly, underestimating others, or being proud can lead to failure. But patience, determination, and consistent effort always bring success. The forest became calmer at night, but the story lived on. The tortoise rested under the stars, thinking, slow and steady really does win the race. The hare lay beside him, thinking, pride can be dangerous, and patience is a real power. And so the race ended, but the moral lesson remained. Never underestimate someone because they seem slow or weak. Patience and persistence are more powerful than speed and pride. Always try your best and never give up, no matter how difficult the journey. Pride can lead to mistakes, but humility brings wisdom. The animals of the forest carried this lesson in their hearts forever. They knew that whether they were fast like the hare or slow like the tortoise, what mattered most was effort, patience, and believing in yourself. From that day forward, every time an animal felt tired or weak, they remembered the tortoise's steady steps and the hare's lesson. And every time someone felt proud or rushed, they remembered how the hare lost because he underestimated others. The forest grew silent, the stars twinkled, and the gentle night wind whispered softly through the leaves. Slow and steady wins the race, and patience, humility, and effort are the keys to success. And with that, the tortoise, the hare, and all the animals in the forest slept peacefully, carrying the lesson in their hearts, a lesson that would last forever. Welcome to the end of our story. Today, we learned about a very slow tortoise and a very fast hare. At first, everyone thought the hare would win because he was so quick and confident. He was proud, full of energy, and sure of himself. The tortoise, on the other hand, moved slowly, step by step, without rushing. But what happened surprised everyone. The tortoise never gave up. He kept moving forward, patiently and steadily. Meanwhile, the hare became careless. He rested, laughed at the tortoise, and even fell asleep during the race. In the end, the tortoise crossed the finish line first. The hare lost, but he learned something very important. This story shows us that patience, effort, and persistence are stronger than pride and speed. Even if you are slow, you can reach your goals if you keep trying. And even if you are fast, you can fail if you are careless or proud. The forest animals celebrated the tortoise's victory and remembered the hare's lesson. From that day, everyone knew that success is not just about being fast. It is about believing in yourself, staying humble, and never giving up. So remember this story when you face challenges in your life. Take one step at a time, stay focused, and be patient. Like the tortoise, you can reach your goals and achieve great things. Slow and steady truly wins the race. Thank you for reading with us today. Keep learning, keep trying, and always believe in yourself.